Why most businesses stay small and what to do about it. In this podcast episode of the Bill Hauser Podcast, we're going to be talking about why 99.9% of businesses stay small and what you can do about it to not stay small. Here's the thing. Most businesses are not businesses, okay? We call business a commercial, profitable enterprise that works with or without you, okay? Business should be an asset. Your business should be an asset that works with or without the owner. If you don't have a business, you have a job. More technically, you have a personal services corporation. Now, all wealth building starts with the exchange of personal services, as it says in the book, Think and Grow Rich. So it's not something to be ashamed about that you have a personal services corporation, but it is something to embrace, and it's something to get, a little bit, I'll say frustrated about, productively frustrated, right? So that you can make change around it. Why is it not productive to have a personal services corporation if you're looking to build a business? Well, first of all, if you have a personal services corporation, it means that you are the bottleneck in your business, right? It means that no decision can be made without your input. No client can be signed up without your oversight. No client can receive service without your oversight. And that's just a constraint, right? It's just a mathematical constraint. You only have X amount of time in your life, in your business, right? And the more time of yours that's required to deliver a result to a client or to run your business, the less time you're able to spend with your family, the less time you're able to spend on your health. It's just a very simple equation, right? When you spend less time on your family, less time on your health, it kind of puts you in more of a scarcity mindset in your business where you're not really filling your other cups in life because you're so demanded to work so much in your business. And it can lower your quality of life. It can lower your quality of decision making, which I actually think is the number one cost of running a personal services corporation, because if you're needed, to work 60 or 80 hours plus per week in your business, it's probably a sign that you are running from thing to thing to thing that you don't even have time to think, right? In the book, I believe it's called The Power of Stillness by Ryan Holiday, which I'm rereading right now. It talks about how all of the world's greatest leaders, innovators have this ability to sit in stillness and to reflect and to journal and to use that slow thinking and fast thinking at the right times. But that slow thinking, as Albert Einstein once said, thinking is one of the hardest things to do, and that's why almost nobody does it, right? It's scary for some people to sit alone. This is why some people say they can't meditate, right? Is I can't sit with my thoughts, or I can't stop my thoughts, right? Well, you don't have to stop your thoughts. You have to embrace your thoughts. You have to become comfortable with your thoughts. You have to be able to augment and shift your thoughts and identify flaws in your thinking and ways that your thinking is incomplete and has incomplete information, right? And allow yourself to analyze your strengths, your weaknesses, right? This reflectiveness, this ability to reflect and be introspective gets cannibalized by your workload when you're working 60, 80, or 100 hours a week. You're not able to reflect. When you're not able to reflect, you're not able to make decisions that will have transformative progress for you, right? This is why I say one of the most important things if you're in the grind right now is to introduce a new and higher value priority in your life, right? One of the best productivity mechanisms to escape kind of the rat race trap of working constantly and being so on call in your business is to introduce a new responsibility, a new initiative that's higher value than what you're currently doing to your life. This is why they say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Why do people say that? Well, the busy person is busy getting stuff done. I actually don't agree with if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I believe if you want something done, give it to a productive person, because there's plenty of people who are busy that aren't productive, right? So if we want something done, give it to a productive person. Give it to someone who's already getting shit done, right? Well, that same thing applies to you. You may feel like you have no time in the day, you're stretched thin, right? You already have too much going on, and precisely what you need in that environment is you need more higher value things on your plate. Because what that's typically a sign of that you're so busy is you have a bunch of low value things on your plate, which are demanding a bunch of your time, right? So here's an example I like to use for this. Let's say you run a business, right? And you have someone who does sales for you, right? And this salesperson who sells your products and services sucks, right? Well, the impulse reaction for most entrepreneurs would be, all right, I'm going to dive in and I'm going to go hop on the phone myself and go fix this problem myself by using my amazing talent in sales, and it'll help me temporarily get more income, right? That's how most people would solve that problem. Slow thinking would say, what is the root cause of why I hired a bad salesperson? What is the root cause of lack of training process that I have that led to this bad salesperson? And I'm going to rebuild the process that led to a bad salesperson producing bad results, because that process can be replicated for hundreds of future salespeople. So just by replacing where you spend your time to the higher value task, all of a sudden, way, way, way less time of yours is required. If you look at a spectrum of time required and value of task, what's really fascinating is the higher the value the task, the less time it usually takes to do, okay? For example, let's say something in your marketing isn't working in your business, right? Well, a higher value task would be to rethink your entire business's unique selling proposition and why your ads aren't resonating or why your marketing isn't resonating in the marketplace. That may only take you 1 hour of brainstorming to kind of, hash out some of your unique selling proposition. If instead you go, all my marketing's not working, let me go back and do all my marketing myself and that could take 40 full hours a week if you went back to doing everything yourself in terms of your marketing, right? So it takes exponentially less time to do higher value things, but it takes courage to say no to the lower value things that produce an immediate result. In the Eisenhower matrix, it talks about, the things that are high urgency, high importance, and oftentimes the things that are highly important are not urgent, right? I believe it's our job as entrepreneurs to make the important things urgent. We have to operate with urgency, but we have to operate with urgency only towards the things that are important, meaning they're going to have a huge disproportionate return on investment if solved, right? So how do we make the important things urgent? So with all that being said, what if we introduce something bigger? Let's say, I'll give you a quick example on this. In 2022, my business partner and I, merged our assets, basically, merged our companies together and created an entirely new company called S&B Team Legal, which is our current entity as of January 1st, 2022. And that company, in the process of us going through the merger and the transaction, if you would have told me 6 months before I decided to, create this new company and merge our assets together and all that, if you would have told me in the 6 months prior to us merging that ask me, hey, Bill, do you have time to deal with a merger right now? Right? I would have said, absolutely not. Right? That I am already stretched thin. I'm dealing with problems in my sales team, problems in my marketing, problems here. There's no way I could deal with a merger. Right? But I decided to do it anyway. And as soon as I made a decision to do something higher value than what I currently thought my priorities were, my entire to-do list vanished. All these things I thought I had to do, I thought were my to-do list, vanished, right? Because I had a bigger priority, right? And the result of my focus shifting to a higher value priority resulted in not 1, not 2, not 3 times the results. We're talking 20 times the results, because the results we got from focusing on that higher value initiative of merging our companies together produced such a disproportionate return that it proved that I was focusing on lower value areas in my own to-do list, right? So why most businesses stay small is you don't have enough big things, big important priorities pulling you forward and forcing you to eliminate your to-do list, right? Your current to-do list. So let's say, for example, you spend 10 grand a month on your marketing. Let's say you make the unequivocal decision, I'm going to go from 10 grand a month in marketing to 50 grand a month in marketing tomorrow, right? You may have all this other crap going on, right? But if you 5x your marketing budget, you're going to get a bunch more leads. You're going to have new problems in your sales process. You're going to have a bunch of leads that aren't attended to. It's going to expose how many people on your sales team, suck and aren't good. It's going to create a bunch of pain, right? But in response to having 5x your marketing budget, you're now going to be solving higher value problems. You're now going to be going, okay, great. How do I handle 5 times the leads? How do I hire additional salespeople? A high value decision forces you into high value actions and eliminates your current to-do list. In the day before you 5xing your marketing budget, you may have thought, well, I've got an angry client today. I've got to pick up the phone personally and talk to them. In the day after 5xing your marketing budget, you're going to be like, hey, Susie, you've got to deal with X, Y, and Z client. I got way bigger problems over here I'm solving for the macro well-being of the entire company. I have to focus on rebuilding our sales team. I have to focus on our lead handling process. I have to focus on hiring someone to rebuild our CRM so we can handle all these leads. I can't handle this individualized problem anymore, right? So it forces you into bigger thinking when you take bigger actions that are of that higher importance category. But again, that time constraint comes in again. How much time does it take to decide to increase your marketing budget from 10 grand a month to 50 grand a month? I don't know, 5 seconds. In as long as you can say the thought, I'm going to 5x my marketing budget, you could have just done it, right? The question is, are you going to do it or not, really? And if you are going to do it, let's not make no mistake, it does not require time to make high value decisions. Like when I decided to, merge with my partner and create a new entity, like that took a second. I mean, that was not a huge time-based decision. It was let's do this. When I partnered with Attorney Assistant, our virtual assistant company, the decision was made in 24 hours. When you know it's right, right? And those decisions have created so much disproportionately positive ROI, that I look back and I'm always reminded that the highest value decisions require the least time, but they require the most intestinal fortitude, the most courage, right? The intangibles is what it requires. So oftentimes the reason we're not, most companies aren't growing is because the leader of the company is just not making big enough decisions. The leader of the company is not making forcing function decisions that force your back up against the wall, right? Decisions that force you to find a way to figure it out. This is why I say like early stage businesses, you got to hire people before you're ready, because ready is the most subjective freaking word ever when it comes to business. You're never going to be quote unquote ready for anything, right? Because when you start a business, most people who start businesses have not started a business before that was successful and scalable. Very rare that someone who starts a business already created $1 billion company and sold it for $1 billion. Most of us are figuring it out on the freaking fly, right? So if you haven't hired full-time employees before, when are you going to be ready for that if you've never done it before, right? The only way to get ready is to actually do it, right? To actually hire someone and figure it out in the process. So like waiting until you're ready to hire someone is a surefire way to stall your growth. Waiting until you're ready to actually start spending some real money on marketing, waiting until you're ready to hire your first salesperson or your next salesperson, like all of these things pigeonhole you. And yes, spending money in these areas, they're going to cost some money in the short term, right? But you got to ask yourself the question, do you want your business to stay small for the long term? Or are you okay with your profits temporarily dipping in the short term so that your business can be big in the long term, so your business can run without you in the long term? It's a question you're going to have to answer. Now, again, most people who listen to this podcast or any other business growth podcast, most people are just not going to do anything about about it, right? They're not going to make change-based decisions that change the trajectory of their life at a high enough rate to create enough progress. So eventually, this whole podcasting thing just becomes a waste of time because it's stuff that you're, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'll get to that at some point. But what's stopping you from pulling the trigger and making the decision, right? Because that's another big reason that people stay small is, their vision isn't big enough, right? Your outcome that you want is not big enough. Your outcome that you have visualized is not big enough. I was watching right now with the football season starting back up, I was watching a documentary with Saquon Barkley, who had the most rushing yards in the NFL last year. And he was talking about before his game against his former team, the New York Giants, he would be lying to us if he said he did not visualize clobbering them every single day before that event. Visualization is one of the most commonly used tools in professional sports. And the reason it's one of the most commonly used tools is because it's probably one of the most effective tools. Because we all know practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. The only way to practice perfect is in your head, right? Because you can visualize perfection in your head, whereas perfection does not exist in the real world. There's always micro deficiencies in the real world. But in your mind, in your mind's eye, you can visualize perfection. Now, it doesn't mean you'll ever attain it, but it does mean you can expand that which you think is possible for you, right? So if you think you're just resigned to a fate of having every single year feel like Groundhog's Day, like exactly like the last year, and that becomes your fate, well, it's going to become your reality. So the question is, how do we shake the barrier? How do we expand what we think is possible, right? And how do we actually almost scale a way of having a big vision that constantly pulls you forward? I'll leave us with a point on upside math. It is easy to spend money on yourself, to spend money on your personal development, to spend money on your business when you are addicted to the upside math, right? If you can't shake the belief, the vision, the viewpoint that your business is going to profit an extra $1 million next year, and all you have to do that is X, Y, and Z objective, you're going to do X, Y, and Z objective. But the big problem is you don't believe adding $1 million in profit to your business in the next year is possible. If you don't believe it's possible, you won't take the actions necessary. When you don't take the actions necessary, you don't get the results. When you don't get the results, you tell yourself, see, I told you, this is my fate. This is what I'm resigned to have for the rest of my life, right? So the vision is really the spark. The belief in that vision is really the spark to all those big, high important actions that eliminate your current to-do list and force you to become the next version of yourself. So implement some of these principles, and I hope that you can, grow your life and business at a much faster rate. I'll see you in the next episode.